Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your Minifigure host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing today? The finale of Lego Masters United States Season 3 is here upon you, with you, right now. It is finally coming to a crescendo, the moment of victory or disappointment for two teams, and one team obviously is going to take home the beautiful Brick Belt trophy. Anyway, so the challenge this week for the finale, they can build anything. They have 24 hours of build time. Mind you, they don't build 24 hours consecutively. That would be stupid, silly. So no. But they can build anything that they want. Judges are looking for creativity, storytelling, I guess, to a certain degree. Just build what you can, whatever you want, and go from there. So let's go ahead and kick it off. We've got 3 teams left, remember. We have Nick and Stacy, Steven, and Dave and Emily, all of whom have a very valid shot at taking this thing home. So first up on the dock is Dave and Emily. They chose to go with a build called Kaleidoscopia, which is, the city of Kaleidoscopia. And they chose to do a city build and just to have a whole bunch of different stuff that is there. They've got varied building heights and textures on the outside and the crazy towers that they have built, which I'll talk about here in a moment. So their build is very unique in its own right. We'll talk about the other two in a moment, so let's take a little bit of a deeper look into their build. So the first thing that you need to know is I don't think he's necessarily king centipede, but there is a joust that is going on. And the one guy that is, I guess, king of the centipedes, he is jousting. He loses the joust match. Ultimately, the centipedes revolt and, they start tearing the city apart. They're causing chaos and stuff like that. They're busting in on a pool party. They're going through the subway underneath. They are just really not happy. And it was just pure chaos, obviously. So some of the elements that you really get to see and stuff, the jousting match that is going on out there is really, really nicely done. All the elements, obviously, the people that are there, but you really get sucked into that kind of story that is going on there. And one of the things that I noticed immediately before they started talking about their build was the subway train that is running underneath the ground that you can see. It's open onto the side, so you can actually get a look at this thing going underneath. You see a centipede chasing somebody down the subway platform, that's freaking out, I'm sure. But they also have lights that are inside of their little train as well. Up on the rooftop, which I know it sounds like very Christmas style that is going on up here. But up on the rooftop, they have that pool that is going on, a rooftop party pool, which is really, really sharp looking. And you've got centipedes that are busting in there as well. One of my favorite things, though, absolutely has to be the build that they did for the towers here. If you've ever seen the Twitch, kind of emoji type deal where it kind of looks like 2 eyes that are in the middle of this kind of almost like a rectangle, more of a square, I guess. That almost is kind of what it reminded me of. And they have them in different colors. It's a place that I would absolutely love to live. Very colorful, very vibrant. And then the thing is, each different level of that build, is slightly askew to the one above. Almost kaleidoscoping. So I really like the way that is done. It's a really cool build. I don't think I'd be curious to know what else they could have really added to make it pop even more. Maybe a little bit more, display that was going on the ground or whatever. But one of the things that Jamie had mentioned is that, you see something like this at Legoland, that's where kids, they're focused, they're looking at this and that. And if you've been to shows, hopefully you've been to a Lego show, a convention somewhere, but you look at a model that somebody did of a layout of something, and you can see all these little facets that are going on. There's one in Nebraska Brick Days, and I know Brian took it up to Chicago this past year, where he had his big, farm kind of idea that was going on, and there's dinosaurs and stuff in there, and there's stuff for you to look at, and you're like, oh, that is so cool. And that's kind of almost what this was like. Amy had mentioned, it really goes along with their personality, because their personality is so much storytelling. And so we'll find out more about that when we get to the interview with them. So on to the next group here for their build. And, we've got one down. There's one team. No, I shouldn't say one down, but there's one team down. Their story is done. So let's move on to Steven and their beautiful micro scale build that they have going. So they chose to do a landscape build called Autumnal Aurora. And this is an actual place called Lake Louise. And the thing about this build is it is micro scale, which is something that, to get the scaling right with everything is not the easiest thing to do. Now they go on and they will tell you, if you've seen it, about the story of them being there as kids and stuff like that. And I guess even as adults, but it's something that they just never forget. And it's one of those things that's just ingrained in their mind. And so you do have I have no relevance to this whatsoever. I cannot relate to this area because we don't have these kind of things in Texas for the most part. Everything is more so flat. We don't have all these mountains and stuff like that. However, you do have these two really brick built, I guess they're supposed to be like visitor center / hotels that is going on. You've got a fire watch cabin that is up there, up in the hills of the mountains, but you have this grand mountain area that is going on each side. And then they use the different colored trans Lego bricks to be able to get the color of like the Aurora Borealis, which I've never seen. I obviously don't live far enough up there. And they have some lights that are backlit on the back of it in different spots, almost kind of like there's like a twinkling that is going on. And that really sells it really well as well. So they have this really long wall of all of these translucent bricks, which are just different colors and everything like that. And at first I was until they really got into it, I didn't really understand. And again, I'm sure it's different for somebody that's seen the Aurora Borealis. Somebody that hasn't, I don't think you can really comprehend. Photos, videos aren't going to really do it unless you're actually there to experience it with your own eyes. But they do have the moon that is up there as well. They use an old canopy piece there in the transgreen. I thought that was kind of cool as well. But one of the other things that they do mention is their story behind this. And there's different colored trees. You have some darker green trees. You have some lighter green. You have a mix of dark and light. You have some that are of that cool yellow, the new cool yellow color, different colors of trees and shrubberies and stuff like that, because it's going through a seasons change, which is really nice as well. And they're just dotted throughout. One of the things that I really thoroughly enjoyed was all of the texture of the sides of the rock around the lake, on the mountains and stuff like that. They have hints of snow in different spots. You have different colored bricks to really, get the different colors of stone, and also just give it a different characteristic as far as color and light and stuff like that. So I really like the way that was done. I'm assuming the lake is pretty much what the lake looks like. However, they do have two little sailboats that are in there, and they're super duper tiny. I really loved everything about this build. I mean, there's a lot that goes on with something like this. If any of you have ever seen Jang Brix's, mountain that he does in the back, that is something wild as well. So one of the things that they did do, I'd mentioned that they used one of the classic pieces for the moon. They also used the classic spacecraft part as well, the number on there, to be able to, add in some nostalgia into there. So I thought that was really cool. Now, my favorite moment about this build was after they got done discussing it, Will chimed in, and Will's Canadian, and he had, kind of waxed on poetic about, going with his kids, going when he was a kid, and just really kind of having that bond and stuff like that. And, that's a special moment as a contestant. And touching on that, Will, I could see Will being an emotional person, but he really didn't show it as much, but you could definitely see that there was some emotion there that he was holding back. You could see it in his face. Like maybe he wasn't ready to cry emotionally, but just having that, like the memories just came back in his head, like everything just flooded back. And he was almost like he was in the moment, whether it be with as a kid or with his kids. So that was a special moment, I'm sure, as well for him. So on to the next and final build of the teams is Nick and Stacy. So Nick and Stacy's build is called Imagination, and they chose to go with building a bookcase, a wooden bookcase, and have just a bunch of different builds that you might see in a kid's room, stuff like that. Like there's a little trophy, there's an Etch-a-Sketch, there's like a stuffed teddy bear, that you have in there, kind of like a little dollhouse. They've got a skateboard attached to the side, and then they have some other stuff. They've got like a little tiny TV that is up on top, which I never had a TV as a kid, not until I was much older. But anyway, you have all of these toys and stuff like that they had built. And some of it is really, really sharp looking. I mean, you've got this nostalgia that they went after, but probably my favorite thing of all was the minifigs, at least behind the story of it. In how they do their animations and stuff. The minifigs come into life in the drawers and stuff like that, where all the Lego parts are and stuff like that. Collectors, people that, sort their stuff a certain way will understand that. But they have a comic book. It's superhero Nick, and he's flying off the comic book page and, busting out of the comic into real life and doing his stuff. There's a little video game that, like I said, that's going on. It doesn't move, but it does tell the story. His figure, brick built figure, this isn't a minifigure, by the way, but busting out, I thought was kind of cool. It really reminded me of the Daily Bugle is what it reminded me of. Kind of like how you have that in there where you can either have the glass, busting out or not, except it wasn't glass. In this case, it was coming out the side, but it is definitely something that it reminded me of. So now we get to the moment that obviously everybody waits for, who's going to go home. Well, not home, but who is going to win is basically what it comes down to. So we have 3 really, really solid builds here. The question becomes, what are the judges really looking at? What is the goal here? They're looking for the most sensational build, the best story. All right. So the team that is not in the top 2, Dave and Emily, I'm really sad to see that. I'm really sad to see that they're not in the top 2. However, I can see potentially what the judges are looking at, maybe have a little bit more in there as far as the story goes, but they're very funky storytellers in all of their builds. I mean, the Revengetables, God, I knew I wasn't going to be able to say it. Anyway, that build, that was something completely unexpected from anybody. That is very, very, very much fairy tale-esque. And they went way out there with it. And then you get into some of the other stuff that they've done, very out there storytelling wise, very unique. So it doesn't shock me. Maybe that is part of the downfall of why they are not in the top 2. So let's get on to the top 2. Who is going to be the winner? If you don't know by now, I want you to just think about it. Take your guess. It's either Steven and Steven or it's Nick and Stacy. Who is it going to be? So the winner of Lego Master Season 3, US, Nick and Stacy. Nick and Stacy win. Steven and Steven are the runner-up. And I will tell you what, you could tell immediately who was the winner ahead of time, because Stacy's dad and Nick's girlfriend were in the camera pan. In the cut, they were cut to them first before they cut to Steven and Steven's families. It's a dead giveaway. If you're not familiar with reality television, it happens all the time. There are always little clues in there to let you know. Anyway, so congratulations to them. They win season 4. They're already casting for season 4. Won't be long before they, start calling many of you out there. I know that they have already reached out to some. April B has already told me they've tried reaching out to her again. So before we wrap up the season for Lego Masters for a whole other year, I found it kind of interesting. I really found it kind of interesting how the challenge came about. And after the episode, there was a lot, and I mean a lot, of frustration, of irritation, of just absolute mind-blowing proportion from people all over the world that had watched this thing, mainly US, Canada, because a lot of other people were already sleeping. A lot of people. Mind you, not only were the top 3 teams Canadian, they locked out the podium. You had a Canadian winner, obviously. Somebody was from Canada was going to win. And it was closed to Canada the first 2 seasons. They said, we're going to open it up, and stuff like that. Okay, maybe Lego Masters North America. I'm just spitballing here. So here's the other thing. The outrage that came out online was, how did Steven and Steven not win? I can see why Dave and Emily's build didn't win. But if you're going on what the judges had said on build, on story, the best thing that you give us, the best thing that you could do. There wasn't a challenge as regarding to, you got to have movement. You got to use water. It's got to sit on a bull. It's got to race in a car. It wasn't any of that. This was a absolutely 100% build and story driven. We already know Emily and Dave's build was very unique as far as build and then also story. Okay. They finished 3rd. But if you're going to compare apples and apples with the winners in 2nd place, where is that difference? Because in my opinion, this is my opinion. It doesn't have to be anybody else's opinion. My opinion is Steven and Steven should have been the winners. Frankly, I feel their build was better. It told a better story. And thus, where social media came into play, a lot of people were very agitated. Now, the other thing that I find kind of interesting, and I need you to keep in mind this is a reality television program. Reality television is notorious for having things scripted a certain way. Maybe not everything. Many, many, many times it happens. The reason I know this is because I used to have a friend that worked in reality television production. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So there are some things on the inside that do happen. So my point in that is this. You had Nick and Stacy as your winners, first place team, and they were labeled as influencers as their team. You had mother, son, brother, sister, siblings, all that kind of stuff. Friends, firefighters, whatever. And then you have influencers, which is the first time we've had this. We haven't had anybody labeled influencers before. So here is where the theory behind everything, based on what I was seeing on social media, was I find it very coincidental that the team that wins are influencers on a season or on a year where it's the 90th anniversary for Lego, that have a very large social media presence and are chosen over, frankly, what I feel was a superior build with Steven and Steven. Again, that's my opinion. Doesn't have to be your opinion or Joe's opinion or Susie's opinion down the road. Doesn't have to be, or across the country in a different part of the world. I just find it very interesting that you have a winner that are labeled as influencers by the show. Themselves will tell you they are influencers. If you were to ask either one of them, they will tell you they are influencers. And they managed to walk away with this. And they did. It's final. It's done. It's over with. I just find it very interesting. Very interesting. So I will say this. At the end of the day, you've got a winner, you've got a 2nd place, and you have all the way down to the very bottom rung of who went home first, which I don't even remember who that was. We had a very different season than we had ever had before, with all these twists and pivots and moves and everything like that. all kinds of different things that happened. You brought on a different team in the middle of the show, in Ethan and Dom. And if you recall, when I called my top 3 teams, Ethan and Dom were one of them, Emily and Liam were one of them, and Nick and Stacy were one of them. I'll be frank. I thought Nick and Stacy were going home 3-4 times in the last few weeks. They were in the bottom 2 many, many times, and they just snuck through. They did sneak through, but they got very lucky in a number of times. So I found it really fortunate for them that they were able to sneak through and not end up being that bottom team, man. They got real close a number of times. So that's going to cut everything from Lego Masters for the year until next year. Well, 2023, right? The interviews, there are 4 of them. I have them coming for you guys. I was unable to attend 2 of them due to work timing, but I was able to get on with Dave and Emily and Steven and Steven. So I was able to finagle some time in the day to be able to pop in on those and get some questions in. I still have the other recorded interviews from the other cast that was asking questions. So hope you guys enjoy them. Those will be coming shortly. And until we meet again, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.